What You Doing Podcast. I'm the AC, and before I get to who my guest co-host for this podcast is going to be, I'm going to introduce myself. If you do not know who I am, like I said, I'm the AC, but I'm also a master's student here in Hawaii, studying ethnomusicology, mainly focused on Filipino music. But when I don't want to do that and want to kind of just, chill, do something I enjoy, I do YouTube videos. I started this podcast, which you can probably tell by this point, and I do Byte, which is Second Vine. I'm also all kinds of other hobbies I like to do, such as writing, of course, music, a lot of other stuff that I'm going to talk about later. But, it's time. Let me introduce my guest co-host for this podcast. It's me. It's also me. Yes, I am doing a podcast with myself, also the AC. And I'm probably going to repeat myself a lot on this. It's going to be a weird thing, but I wanted to do this podcast with myself to talk about myself. Even though I do like to talk about my friends and stuff, I felt like I needed some time to take for myself after doing this for nearly a month, just to talk about what I plan on doing with this podcast, what I plan on doing with all the other stuff I'm doing, like with my YouTube, Byte, my writing, all my other hobbies. So that is kind of along the lines of what we're going to be talking about in this, but you'll probably see where that comes in later. So yeah, it's me. I'm my own guest co-host. It's weird, yeah, I guess, but you know what? I had this weird idea that I wanted to do, and I had it, and I was like, I gotta do this right away. But this is not normally what the podcast is going to be like. It's not normally just me to myself. What I originally made this podcast for was a way to reconnect with friends, see what's going on in their lives, catch up with what they're doing, and then, share memories with them. And just talk about, maybe not necessarily always good all times, but a lot of memories we cherish or just find funny, or what made us who we are. But sometimes they're also more going to be topical, and I have a lot of plans with a lot of people that I want to do, but I wanted to do this one first. And this one is going to be more topical, of course, because I know who myself is. I'm probably not going to go into too many memories on this podcast, but I wanted to talk about more of what my podcast is going to be in the future. I've done this for a month so far. I talk about what I've done, what I think has worked and not worked, kind of my process of how I've been making these podcasts, if you're interested in that. But yeah, other self, what do you think of the podcast so far? Well, if we're talking about this podcast so far, it's a weird start. I'm trying to do this whole record one of myself first, which is you, and then go back and watch it, which is me, and then act like I'm responding to that. The whole thing is, I wasn't sure how to respond the first time, and then I forgot what I said the first time during my second time. So it's weird. If you're talking about the past 4 podcasts I've done, it's been super cool. Meeting with friends I haven't talked with in years. It's been so awesome. And catching up, it's almost like no time has passed at all. And we're just talking again like we used to. Of course, these are close friends I had when we were together. So it's not that awkward, even though it's a weird sense to come back together and try to talk about. But, yep. So, and yeah, and I don't know, I want to keep doing this, and I want to branch out more to other people that, I was somewhat associated with, maybe not the closest. But yeah, so far it's just reconnecting. It's been the greatest thing, especially now at these times when they're not really talking to people that much, which is, the whole reason I started this podcast. But yeah, I hope we can do more of that. Yeah, that's a lot of kind of what I've been thinking about my podcast too. As far as like what I plan on doing in the future. I already said, yeah, I have people on board to already be on my podcast. Some of them are going to be topical because I do want to talk about a lot of topics. And then there are a lot of people I just want to talk with. I mean, there's some people I haven't gotten to agree yet, haven't asked yet, but I imagine just like the cool, fun conversations we can have. I also want to start doing more than just like one-on-one podcasts. Maybe get a group of people to come and talk. I have a lot of ideas for all that, but we'll have to see what comes of it. You know, like I said, only 1 month so far. It's still really new.
No, it sure is.
But as far as the process of the podcast go, primarily most of the views have been on YouTube, and it's not been crazy. It's been like 20s to 40s so far views per video, and I also been putting it on audio services.
We've been trying it.
The first one was Anchor.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, Anchor sponsors the videos, but it's on their platform, so of course they would.
Don't make that much money with it.
I'm not ever really expecting to make any money from doing this, and if I do, it won't be for a long time. But if I ever did, it'll be cool. But yeah, from Anchor, they distribute my podcast to other things. I'm also on Spotify, Google Podcasts, one called Radio Public, Breaker, and Pocket Cast.
Yeah.
A lot of those I haven't heard of, but I'll probably get into things I don't like later, but I'm also technically on Apple Podcasts, but I didn't want to be, and I keep forgetting to take my podcast off of there. I don't like Apple or Apple products. I just keep forgetting to take it off. And then from there, Apple has another podcast service called Overcast, I think. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure the time, so I'm on that too, whatever. Yeah, haven't really been getting any views on that. I guess the people I know who would be interested in watching anything I'm in, or my guests, don't really use those podcast streaming services, or maybe they just see my YouTube first and go to that first. But it has been interesting to have people on, and you know, I get views, but I also get usually each week 1 or 2 more subscribers. Probably not for me, but to support the guests I have on here.
Hey, I'm gonna count it.
But yeah, that's pretty much my plans and what I've been trying to do with the podcast. As far as how I actually record the podcast, this one is weird, so I'm going to get to that later. How I've been doing my podcast lately, though, and I think I've mentioned it a little bit, is I'm not a great editor. Okay, I'm learning, but I figure out how to do stuff in a very slow, long process, and it gets the results I want, or somewhat close to it. But what I've been doing is, you know, I just do a Zoom call with someone, then I take just the picture, I'll export that of each person, so I have a separate file for that, separate file for the audio, then I put it into my Premiere Elements. I'm not exactly sure how to do everything, so I have to export all this stuff individually because I don't know how to crop it how I want, or if that's even possible in Elements. Maybe if I did Pro, it probably has more tools I could use.
Probably.
But for now, that's what I've been doing. It takes a long time. Some of them takes 3 hours to do each individual person. Audio only takes like minutes. Then I put it all together. I don't cut a lot from my podcast. The only time I cut something is if there's an interference with something, or maybe a long awkward pause, because Zoom has a weird delay, so sometimes the other person doesn't realize what I'm saying or that I'm referring to them for a few seconds, and a few seconds while I'm editing is enough for me to want to cut it. And like, I go back and forth on whether that's, you know, even worth it or not.
It's
I can sometimes spend hours and hours editing an hour-long podcast.
Yeah, and something like that. It's just
and still feel like I didn't do much to it. And it's been fun. It's really enjoyable, and it's cool to go and listen to these. But once I go through it a few times, I'm just, and then of course I listen again after I publish it. But yeah, as far as how I've been getting guests, I put the call out there on my Instagram. maybe Facebook too, asking if anybody was interested in being on it. Got a few people. Then I asked. The rest of them I just asked. They say yes. Sometimes they're like, they delay a little bit, which is fine because people have busy schedules. But yeah, I also just been choosy so far, so I've been trying to find people I think will agree to it in the first place. So eventually I'm going to get a no. Oh wait, I did get a no recently.
Oh, yeah.
But that one was understood. That one was like, hey, you just want to be on it? And then it was like, okay, that's fine. Because I already had someone else on the same podcast. This was like, do you want to also be on it? It was fine. That one is another weird podcast that might happen. It might come out. It's going to take a lot of work, though, if it actually happens. But that's pretty much how this whole podcast system goes. I don't know. What about you, my other self? Anything else you want to add to our whole podcast thing going on?
Yeah, there's a few things, especially going back to editing. There's something I noticed. I've been working on it a whole lot. I do it in the podcast, especially since I listen to it for hours, but also other YouTube videos. I notice I say, but, and it's just this big exclamation for some reason. If you watch any of the stuff I do, you will probably notice this. I mean, I know you notice it because you're me, but it's just a weird habit. But yeah, besides other stuff, there's, any recording, especially since this is an audio-based podcast, usually the YouTube is actually just the side, that's what's more popular. Getting sound right to where it sounds nice and clean and then get no background noise is nearly impossible. You probably are hearing plenty of background noise in this recording because there's always people around or talking or dogs making noise. I try my best with what I have, which is kind of what this whole podcast and my whole YouTube thing is in general. But yeah, I mean, from off the top of my head, that's kind of what I can remember of podcasts.
That's going to be pretty much all I have to say on what my podcast actually is. But let's talk about other things I've been doing because, like I said, this podcast is all about me this time. And I just wanted to have my guest co-host also be me, so it act like I actually have another guest. It's weird. I don't know. I'm a weirdo, but I wanted to do this. And when I talk about my YouTube, if you ever watched any of my other YouTube stuff, I've talked before about how I could talk a lot about a lot of stuff. And I try to cut it down to around 10 minutes. Ideally 9-ish minutes, 8 to 9. Sometimes it goes into 11 or 12. That's fine. But it's an easy thing for me to just go and talk about something for 25 minutes. And I was like, oh, I could do a podcast by myself.
Oh, I don't know if they're any different.
But then I was like, that's boring. Okay. So I just do these 10 minutes videos. And that's where I go to my YouTube. So if you have not seen my YouTube, I do all kinds of stuff because I have all kinds of interest. I have a pretty consistent schedule with it. So starting with the podcast on Monday, and then Tuesdays I do Whatcha Doin Readers, and it's pretty much things I've been reading. A lot of manga because I love manga, but it's also a lot of indie authors, and then some big books that come out. Like I just finished reading The Songbird and the Snake, the Hunger Games prequel. I do read big books that come out by big publishers, but I mainly focus on a lot of manga and light novels, and then indie authors because I like supporting, maybe not necessarily an underdog, but people I think should get more attention. So that's why I like making videos of them. On Wednesday, it's all about gaming. Usually Nintendo. And it's pretty much always Nintendo. It's always something Nintendo related, whether it be a Nintendo game or a game that gets put on the Switch that wasn't originally Nintendo. But usually happens either one or two ways. It's either I talk about some kind of Nintendo news, like if there's a Nintendo Direct, or like recently there was a Pokemon Presents, which was okay. And I talk about my news like that, which I like a lot more than my other thing I do with game, which is gameplays. Look, I'm fine with gameplays. I enjoy the games, and the reason I do it is to show off the games I play. But, I realize I like talking about the games more than actually showing them. But I feel like when you talk about games, People want to see you playing the games you're talking about. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start getting into gameplays. I feel like if I was streaming, I could do that, but I don't have a strong enough PC to do that. So I'm gonna have to work on that. Maybe one day I'll become a streamer too, and I don't know. I have other streamer friends, so that'd be cool. Maybe I can be one of them. We'll have to see. But for now, I like talking about games more than playing them. But I've also been playing a lot of games too, and I do a little bit of those. Sometimes they go for like an hour long. Sometimes they're 10 to 20 minutes. It's whatever I'm feeling that day. I try to play, do a full playthrough of some games. Sometimes I'm just like, this is what I was feeling like doing in this one game. This is what it is. So that's what I do on Wednesdays. Thursdays. Recently, I've been watching The 100, so I do a weekly review of each new episode of The 100. In the past, it was also the gaming news, because Nintendo I feel like they used to do their directs on Thursday mornings for me, so then I'll talk about that. But yeah, for now it's the 100 reviews until the season's over with. Then I might go back to my old schedule. But it's also normally What You Doing Other Nerds. This is where I talk about other, maybe not necessarily nerdy stuff. I just couldn't think of a better title for the show, episodes, segment, whatever I want to call it. And it's, all non-Japanese things, because obviously I love Japanese anime and manga and all that stuff. But this is also for like live action shows, maybe cartoons, Western cartoons, stuff like that, compared to like anime and manga. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, right now I'm focusing on the 100 for that. Friday is VAC stories. Normally my YouTube is just VAC stories, but I don't know, Parts VS, this is when I talk about stuff I'm writing. And I'm going to talk more about what I like to do as a writer later, but it comes into like me also wanting to kind of just read my stuff, be kind of getting a little practice as a voice actor, but also exposing what I'm stuff to people, so people know I am actually writing. Because until I publish something, which I hope to do soon, nobody really knows I write that much. But lately, I have a thing called Snippets I've been doing, and then DreamPad, where I read my dreams. I have a lot of dreams, so I've been reading a lot of those lately, because I have other things planned soon. Then Saturdays, what do I do on Saturday? It's my vlog. Recently I put one out about the beach. That was fun because I've been stuck at home for a while.
It's been a while.
But yeah, I suck at vlogging.
Yeah.
But I still try. The only way to get better at it is to do it. But this is where I try to go around Hawaii, doing other things, either stuff I have done or stuff I haven't. I try to stick to stuff I've already done, which, my enthusiasm isn't going to be as high as something brand new, but I don't want to go to a brand new place I haven't done before and record the whole time. I feel like that would ruin the first experience. So I go to places, now I go back to places and do my vlogs. I've also been in the Philippines. I did a little vlog stuff about that, and then just other stuff in my life. It's called What You Doing the AC, so that's all about me, just like kind of what this is. It's pretty much, I guess, a very long episode of What You Doing the AC. I'm still going to keep it brand as What You Doing Podcast. Then comes Sunday, last day of the week. First day of the week for me. When do I start my weeks? It doesn't really matter anymore. 3 weeks of being at home all the time doesn't matter. Sunday is What You Doing Otaku. This is when I get really into the big Japanese culture stuff. A lot of anime, whole lot of anime. Sometimes manga. I kind of stick to What You Doing readers for manga. But yeah, mainly just a bunch of anime. And then I've been getting a lot more into anime related news, either both anime, manga, conventions, just news about all that, all kinds of stuff I talk about, and it's just stuff that pops in my head, maybe something I see a few articles about, and I give my thoughts on it. I've been really getting into the whole news part of it, but it's also my favorite thing to do. It's one of the reasons I started my channel in the first place, and why I got into YouTube, so I could talk about all the otaku stuff, because there's people who do it, but I feel like the things I like are a bit different than what is mainstream and people like, or what big people who are huge into anime. I don't think I'm a niche, but I think for some reason what I like is not liked by as many people. And I want to find other people who do like the same things I like in the same way. So that was mainly what I do. But that's what my YouTube channel is about.
More
But,
or less.
other stuff, what have been some of your favorite things to do on our YouTube channel?
Really? There's been a lot of stuff I like doing on here. At first, yeah, it started off weird doing this whole YouTube thing. I'm not comfortable. I don't like the sound of my voice, so getting started first, getting used to that was weird. But since then, I've done a lot of things I've just really enjoyed. The first thing that comes to mind is our awards thing that we did at the end of 2019. Just doing the entire week of top 10 favorite things, top 100 anime, and then all that just being in one filming while I just continuously got drunker and then less clothed throughout the thing. That was funny and fun to do for me, and then I just cut it off from that one video to last the entire week. But the other thing I really enjoy from this is I talk about how I like things that I feel not other people like. And then what really made me feel like all this was worth it is I was finally getting people commenting on my videos being like, for example, my Splatoon manga. When I did a review on that, somebody's like, I've been looking for a video of Splatoon all over the place. And I finally found someone else. And there's been other people that have commented on all kinds of stuff. But yeah, each thing I do, I always find something enjoyable with it. If I was to just go through the week and talk each segment of what I like, podcasts. I already talked plenty of podcasts, so I'll skip Monday. Talking with friends from my past is always great. And then looking forward to the future of that and seeing what other friends I can connect with. But if we're going to go with Tuesday and readers, being able to give indie authors more of a spotlight has been awesome. A book series I've been reading, A.R. Dragonfly, like getting some connection with this author like through Twitter, and then like making videos on his books. Reading more of his books where I plan on putting out more reviews, stuff like that. Giving indie authors more attention because that's what they deserve, and then giving light novels more attention because I love light novels. And then, yeah, I already talked about Wednesdays, the gameplays, whatever. I do like talking about games. And it also goes into me getting more into news and all kinds of stuff. So, like, talking about gaming news and reviewing the Nintendo Directs and Pokemon Presents and giving my thoughts on it has always been getting, like, more and more into my interest in what I've been wanting to do. And I was never really a big news guy, but talking about news stuff, and especially video games and otaku kind of stuff, I guess other YouTubers I've been watching probably it rubs off on me. I'm like, I want to do this kind of stuff my way. That's what it is. Going to what you doing, other nerds? Yeah, watching the 100. I did this with the Magicians last season, the Magicians, and I loved it. And especially theories and stuff about what's happening in the last season. And then this is the last season 100, and another show I like is ending. So just doing a weekly episode by episode review theories. It gives me a good way of tracking of am I actually getting these theories right? Because I did in the Magicians, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to do this so again in the 100. So that's been great. Moving on to the AC stories, just reading while I write. It's just been cool just to remind myself also that I'm a writer and I do write stuff. There's other stuff I want to read, of course, but man, reading my dreams has just been weird, somewhat embarrassing. I don't know if I ever said this anything else, but if you watch any of my DreamPad videos, most of the time the people do have names. I just leave them out because I don't want any of those people to know I'm dreaming about them, even though it happens. I can't control it. It's weird. But yeah, some of them feel really personal, and I get a little embarrassed reading them. But it's cool because also the DreamPad, in one of my podcasts I mentioned it earlier with my friend Carter Muncie, about how him connecting through Instagram, talking about one of my dreams from high school. That was one of the other reasons I started this podcast. He helped me get the motivation to do that. The vlogging I want to get better at, because one of the reasons I came here to do this or came to Hawaii and wanted to do vlogging was because other people wanted me to send them videos and pictures of Hawaii and what it's like. And I just forgot, and I still suck at. I'm not great about it, and that comes with I want to experience more than I just want to record it. And then talking about going back to the new stuff. It's been awesome. I've been doing all kinds of little features and news. I like to cover news about, One Piece, when it could potentially end, it moving Netflix. I've done stuff about conventions and other animes getting delayed. I like doing this new stuff, getting articles together and reading through them, seeing what kind of information is. And if I had more time in my life, I would go and get even more in depth with all this kind of stuff. But yeah, that was kind of day by day for my schedule of YouTube recording. I guess I'll just leave it there for now. There's plenty, but you can always check out my YouTube if you're curious as to what I'm doing with that.
This whole YouTube thing has been super enjoyable.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially when it comes to views and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's really confusing. I never know what's going to actually get a lot of views. It still confuses me. There's been some just really dead videos and that I actually really liked. And then, talking about like the Jujutsu videos and some of the random Pokemon Mystery Dungeon videos, it got so many views compared to everything else.
Yeah,
I don't really know.
I don't either
know why. And then, of course, like I said earlier, the podcasts, they do all right. They do better than average, which, I would think the average could be higher, but we'll have to see where that goes. I guess I just need more people to comment.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, more people would be nice if they would come and watch. So please do that. If you're listening, watching, check out my YouTube. I know I said it earlier, but yeah. Like, I'm not trying to make a job out of this, but support is always nice, right?
Yeah. Well, enough about YouTube. I make a YouTube video every day. Let's talk about something else. Something I used to make every day. For a good solid 2 months, I was making a Byte video every day. Sometimes 2 a day.
Yeah.
Rarely 2 a day, but sometimes 2 a day. But once, I don't know, that 3rd month hit and it just declined. I've only made 2 for this 3rd month so far. I'm going to get more into it, but I once started doing more podcast stuff, keeping myself busy, trying to get more into research and all that kind of stuff. Even though bites aren't long, I kind of just forgot about it, I guess. Or I just don't think about it. I have some planned. I still have a whole bunch of ideas. But, yeah, I haven't done too much bite stuff in a while. And it's...
Yeah, I don't
know. Like, I like the bike community. And the whole reason I got into it is because I discovered Vine Lay. And before I could really get into making vines, it died. Then TikTok came around, and I hate TikTok. I hate TikTok. I think I've said this a lot before, and it's just so annoying. Everyone loves it. I just don't understand. Oh, and I found Byte, and I like it. I like it so much better, and I like the people on it.
Shout out you, Byte people.
And then, I don't know. So I just lost the enthusiasm. I think it was just going. I think I just tired myself out real quick from doing so many. I'm going to find some kind of schedule so I can have something consistently going up. I would like to do one every day, but that's a lot of work. And like the more I did, the less quality the bites had.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe a few a week I'll do, maybe 2 a week. I don't really know. Maybe just some on the weekends. Well, it doesn't matter. Every day seems like a weekend. But yeah, I do like making bites
too. I'm you. But how about just spitballing here? How about we make a bite or perform a bite right now?
We could.
Yeah.
It'll be weird. It would be weird to do right now. You want to do the narcissistic bite? Man, I planned this one. This was going to be one of my next ones. I don't know if I can actually perform it on the podcast. Let's see. If you haven't seen my bites, most of them are just me talking to myself anyways. That's why, even though this kind of podcast is weird, it's not that weird to me.
It's also
Let's
why
see,
I want to
how
do. We should do the
do I
narcissistic one.
do this? What was even the way I did it? Why don't you start while I think?
Oh man, maybe we should have planned this one out before. All I wrote down on my notes was do narcissistic fight. Yeah, let me. Let's see. What should I do? So we have a lot of bites talking to each other.
Yeah, we kind of do, I guess.
Is that not kind of narcissistic of us to do?
I mean, yeah, it is. But I mean, isn't it all about us, anyways?
Yeah, I guess it will be. Okay, cool. Yeah, guess it is.
So I'm going to edit that in the podcast, so that makes more sense.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
Usually bites are, last time I checked, they're about 16 seconds long. So, I'll edit it to be kind of like a typical bite format. For anyone listening, it'll just sound weird.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird.
But yeah,
Either way.
my bite editing skills are pretty minimal.
Yeah.
If I had Premiere Pro, I could edit it a lot more,
Maybe.
but I don't, so I try to do all the editing on my phone. It's not great yet, but I don't know. What did you think of the bite we just made?
It was weird. No, it's weird because we plan to do this, but we don't actually plan what we're going to do. Like I said before we started, we was like, let's do this bite about being narcissistic, and then didn't script anything else out after it. So literally, right before we filmed it for this podcast, it was me, which I cut out probably, is thinking of what I should actually say for it. And like, I'm not a great actor. I feel like maybe doing these bites have helped, but yeah, it's weird. Well, I have nothing else to say besides that though.
Yep, it's weird, but I'll get more into it. I still feel like I think about it like, it's kind of a hassle, but I don't know. I'll get more into it. I lost my enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it back. I know it. Because my enthusiasm for podcasts and YouTube has been shooting up. I'm sure that one will too. But, yeah, let's talk about my writing. I mentioned earlier that this whole thing kind of started off with me being a writer. Back since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I loved writing. I wrote a story about...
Of course.
I remember a story about a dog looking to go find a pet dog for himself. And he just ended up becoming friends with another dog. It was weird. It was so weird. And then it went on and I illustrated it too. It was so dumb. But that was the first time I really started wanting to write. And then it just went on from there. In 8th grade, I wrote for like some Halloween prompt in my typing class. I typed out this whole short story about some haunted house and dangerous, and it was a pretty intense one for an 8th grader to make. It was pretty brutal, but my friends loved it. I printed it out and I gave copies to other people. It was awesome. People loved it, and I think that was the first start. It's like, wow, maybe I can actually be a writer. Come 10th grade, we had to do this stupid writing prompt that I didn't want to do, but it was supposed to be like the laws of life, and it wasn't what you thought. It wasn't what you thought the laws of life was supposed to be. It was something very southern of values that they thought you should write about, and I wasn't having that. So I wrote the dumbest thing I could think of, and it was so bad that not only did my English teacher at the time talk to me about it and not turn it in because it was like a state thing that I had to do this for, my band director also had to talk to me about it. And like, they were cool with it. They understood, because this was a last minute thing. I had one night to do it because it wasn't a requirement. Suddenly became a requirement. but it was bad. And then, same thing. I printed out copies. I gave it to the people who wanted it. Oh, it was great. And one of my friends kept that copy of his up into college. I think, let's see, that was 10th grade, and he had it still in our like second year of college, and it was, oh man, it was so good. It was so bad. I wish I still had a copy of it. I kind of remember what it was, but pretty much my law of life was not to die. That was like the first few sentences was talking about that. Then the rest was like, I don't even know. I think this was right before Michael Jackson died.
Oh,
So something
yeah.
about Michael Jackson, like a drug trip, kicking a chihuahua. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, and it was just weird. It was just
Yep.
the most chaotic thing I've ever written or seen written, and I loved it. I loved it so much. And then I didn't write much more after that, and then it came into when was it? I guess it was my freshman year of college. Um, I've been watching The Walking Dead. I've been really
Yeah.
getting into zombies, which I loved all my life.
Sure have.
But I think it was just I got bored in rehearsals, um, and I was like trying to think of stuff to do. Back then, I was a good student, so I got all my homework done right away. But when I wasn't doing homework, I was like, what am I gonna do? And I was like, man, I really wish I knew what it was like to be in a zombie apocalypse. And it was something I talked about with my friends all my life, and I was like, why don't I write my own zombie book? And that was the first start of me actually planning to write a full novel. And it was awesome. And it was great. Until I get like 3 chapters in, maybe two or three, maybe it was the second chapter. I realized Walking Dead's Telltale game is kind of similar to what my plan for the story was, and I was like, it's different. But then I had to like change it up a bit, and that kind of discouraged me from writing my zombie book. I wrote until chapter 4. I had a whole series planned out with 5 books, and then that was like, I'm gonna take a break. And then I started having ideas further. Each year I was getting more and more ideas. Then in 2016, I think it was it 2016? Yeah, 2016. November 2016, while I was teaching, I was like, why don't I make an author's page? So I did that. And then I made an author's Twitter. I branded myself the AC. Some of it was the AC Stories. It just seemed like some kind of writer. And it took no traction at all. I got a few followers and likes from my friends on Facebook. Twitter, I had hardly anyone. But I also found this website called Vix Lab, and there was a community on that was thriving for like, I'll say thriving for like the first 2 years, 2 or 3 years, and then past year or two, it's kind of died. But it was great, and it was encouraging me to write. I write all kinds of stuff, and then I got into grad school where I have to write all the time.
All the time.
My writing slowed down, even though I was wanting to write light novels, write a bunch of short stories. I picked up experimental type of writing, which I really like to do. But I haven't been writing too much lately. Too much as much. Yeah, cool, let's go with that. I haven't been writing that much lately for fun because I write all the time for my master's. And I don't know, I guess it didn't kill the enthusiasm. I still want to write all the time, but it's like doing school stuff all the time and then going and being like, okay, writing more. I'm just tired. And writing more isn't always the first thing I choose to do now when I relax. Also, I used to write a lot in bars, and I don't go to bars that much anymore either because I had a great bar in my undergrad city, and
Doesn't exist
I haven't
anymore,
found that
though,
one
but yeah.
yet here. But that pretty much brings up to where I am now and why I write, how I got into writing. But, other stuff, go ahead and tell them what we're writing and kind of what I plan to write.
Yeah. So what I'm kind of writing right now. Thanks, other self, for bringing it up. I talked about experimental writing. So this is stuff I probably would never publish, but oh wait, maybe. It's more just me having fun, kind of just messing around, seeing what kind of art I can make out of writing. There's stuff like poetry and all those kind of things, but there's other things I want to do, and a lot of it comes from being inspired by music and how weird music pieces can be, and from that kind of training. So I have one called Snippets. I think I mentioned it earlier. It's where I write a sentence a day and do not think about what I'm going to write beforehand until that one sentence that day. If I think of anything further, maybe I'll remember the next day. Usually I don't. And it's okay. It's been it's an okay story since I have no consistency with knowing where it's gonna go since I don't plan anything out. When I do bring them together, it's a story of something, and I've read some of it on my DAC stories on my YouTube, so you can see that there. Then I have another experimental thing I do called TikTok. Another reason I hate TikTok is because I started writing this before TikTok became an app, but then it used the same spelling. But of course, nobody's going to believe I use it, so I had to change it to the actual different spelling of TikTok. I've always wanted to keep how I write it a secret, but it's pretty much there. It goes by an hour, and each hour is some kind of event that happens. It has a theme, and each line, not necessarily sentence, but each line that I separate it into is 1 minute. So if I was to theoretically act it out or read it out, it should take an hour to do. But that would be weird because some of the situations psychologically would be silence or a lot of internal thinking that may not be the best to see. And that's the whole 1 line, 1 minute concept is kind of the experimental part with that. On the non-experimental side of things, yeah, I'm working on a few light novels that may or not eventually get finished or published. I mentioned the zombie novel, changing that format a little bit into just being a longer light novel. Have 5 series planned. Maybe I'll finish it eventually. I have all kinds of other things. I have spin-offs of other things that I've written. Don't really know where they're going to go. I have another light novel I'm working on about an island where music is magic. We'll see where that goes. And then I have a short story collection. I'm almost done with it. I'm on the last short story, and then of course, some editing. And then I actually plan on publishing this one through Amazon Publishing. I keep saying it's going to be out soon, but just keep a lookout for that. But for now, that's kind of all I'm really writing and planning to write.
Yeah, so I really do have a lot of plans
Yeah.
to write. I'm going to get more into it. I really am.
Yeah.
And, I don't know exactly what I plan or what my end goal with this is. It would be great if I became a published writer and I could just write all the time.
Yeah, it would.
But for now, that's not exactly my priority. I mean, none of this hobby stuff is my priority right now. My priority right now is finishing my degree, probably finding a job with that. But if something came from this, it'd be cool.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so you might be wondering, why do I do all this? And it's because I don't know when it started or when I even heard the, phrase or whatever, idiom, but I think of myself as a jack of all trades, master of none. I've always seemed to be really decent.
Yeah.
Bordering kind of good at everything I tried. But I was never the best at anything I tried. I've always been really smart, but I've never been the smartest in my class. Kind of. I mean, it kind of flip-flops on some of the stuff.
Pretty smart.
I've never been like super athletic, but I've always been able to do more than my body looks like I should be able to do.
It's not that impressive.
And I get stuff done, I guess. I'm not the greatest musician that exists, but somehow I ended up with a degree in music, and I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then I play a lot of games, but even though I beat a lot of people, there's still some people that beat me. So I'm not the best. I'm not mastering this stuff, but I'm a jack of all trades. But I do have a whole bunch of likes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff I like. And yeah, like of course I have a degree in music, and I still like playing music. I play a lot of ukulele. I have an ocarina. There's a guitar. I fiddle around with sometimes. I don't have an actual fiddle, but I'm sure I can learn. And then I'm primarily a percussionist, but there's not too much stuff. I don't have a lot of the instruments I used to have with me now. But then there's more stuff than that. I like learning languages. I'm not fluent in really any other languages. Maybe a little conversational or whatever, and
Yeah.
some.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to get better at drawing. Not great at that, and want to get better at voice acting. Still hate my voice. And then there's talking about field school stuff. I used to really love climbing and hiking and stuff. I don't really do much of that anymore. And then there's stuff like board games, but you need people to do those. Then other things like I was really into botany growing up, maybe because I lived in the country and I was always surrounded by plants. The other thing is a lot of the things I loved when I was in high school, maybe late middle school, that kind of stuff, nobody else really cared about. And then now I look into this kind of stuff and everyone loves this kind of stuff. I just don't do it or don't have time for it. I'm a little annoyed. Stuff that people didn't think was cool when I was doing it, now suddenly everyone's doing it, whatever, not bitter. And now they don't shut up about it. And it's like they're rubbing it in my. Okay, I'm going to get on a rant. So let's go on to something else. Those are my likes.
So yeah, that's a lot of what it is. Like drawing is one of the things I think I am bad at. Sometimes I do draw nice stuff, but yeah, voice acting would be a cool thing I really would like to get into also. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff I want to get good at, and I continuously get better at them. I don't know if I ever become the best at something,
Probably not.
but I do the things I like, and I talk about the things I like, and my whole life is just about pleasing myself, I guess, doing the things I like, amusing myself. That's why, that whole narcissistic fight I try to make
Yeah.
on here, which is also not the best. Um, it's kind of my mindset, and like I don't want to be all full of myself, but I just care about doing things that I like, and people don't like the same things as me. Oh well, there's a lot of things I don't like. Some of those being, I already mentioned Apple. I don't like Apple. I don't even know if I should get into this whole rant. I feel like I would do a whole rant into Apple. So I'm not. But I'm not a big fan of Apple. I'm not a big fan of HBO. I'm not a big fan of TikTok, like I already said. And I'm not a huge fan of Star Wars either. Like, I don't hate Star Wars. I'm not crazy about Game of Thrones either, but that goes in the HBO thing. So there's a lot of big things I just don't care about. But there's a lot of things I do. But, yeah, that's pretty much me. That's just what I do. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And
Just going on
Yeah.
stuff about what they do or don't like. I don't want to think of myself as a hipster, but
yeah, I never want to think of myself as a hipster, yeah, that's right. I sometimes do feel like I have this whole hipster mentality, even though hipsters seem like they're the cool things now. I don't know.
But that's because like hipsters are like, oh, we don't want to do what's cool and kind of stuff, and then they there's so many people that start getting this idea, and then I'm like, I kind of think that too. It's almost also a kind of reverse psychology kind of deal, but I don't know. It's weird. I tried not to just hate things because it's popular, but there's a lot of stuff I'm just not into, and I can't help it. And I don't know if it's because it's popular or because I just don't really like it. I don't know.
That's pretty much it for me. That's pretty much all I wanted to
Yeah, okay.
kind of say in this podcast. There's plenty, of course, I could keep talking about, but
Yeah, probably.
this isn't the original reason I made the podcast. I just want to talk about the podcast more now that it's getting up and running. Talk about more of my plans, all that kind of stuff, and then the other stuff I'm doing. Because, if you don't know who I am, and what I want to do, then maybe you won't have any interest in the podcast to begin with. And I feel like if you know the host, me, a little bit more, then you'll be more into watching or listening to the podcast. But for now, that's going to be it.
Okay. Cool.
But if you do want to follow me on all this other stuff I mentioned, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and then YouTube and Byte is all the AC Stories. And then also on my Instagram, it's the_AC_stories. I'll put all the links in the description. Easy for you to find. Anything you want to add, other self?
Yeah, just, thanks for having me, even though I'm you, and this was our dumb, weird idea of doing it. But, no, it's been fun. It's been fun doing all this. There's frustrations in making videos and trying to make them better. But, I'm trying my best. You're trying my best. We're the same person. And we'll see where this madness takes us to see what else I can do. But, to everyone who stayed and watched, thank you so much for watching. I hope you watch my other stuff, listen to my other podcasts, read the stuff I write. But until next time, I'm the AC. This was the AC. Bye.
Bye.